Chapter 2. The Three Gems. Many of us worry about the world situation. We don't know when the bombs will explode. We feel that we are on the edge of time. As individuals, we feel helpless, despairing. The situation is so dangerous. Injustice is so widespread. The danger is too close. In this kind of situation, if we panic, things will only become worse. We need to remain calm, to see clearly. Meditation is to be aware and to try to help. I like to use the example of a small boat crossing the Gulf of Siam. In Vietnam, there are many people called boat people who leave the country in small boats. Often the boats are caught in rough seas or storms. The people may panic and boats can sink. But if even one person aboard can remain calm, lucid, knowing what to do and what not to do, he or she can help the boat survive. His or her expression, face, voice, communicates clarity and calmness. And people have trust in that person. They will listen to what he or she says. One such person can save the lives of many. Our world is something like a small boat. Compared with the cosmos, our planet is a very small boat. We are about to panic because our situation is no better than the situation of the small boat in the sea. You know that we have more than 50,000 nuclear weapons. Humankind has become a very dangerous species. We need people who can sit still and be able to smile, who can walk peacefully. We need people like that in order to save us. Mahayana Buddhism says that you are that person, that each of you is that person. I once had a student named Thich Nhat Hanh who entered the monastery at the age of 6. At the age of 17, he began to study with me. Later, he was the first director of the School of Youth for Social Service, where he directed thousands of young people working during the war in Vietnam, rebuilding villages that were destroyed, and resettling tens of thousands of refugees fleeing the war zones. He was killed in an accident. I was in Copenhagen when I heard of the death of my student. He was a very gentle monk, very brave. When he was a novice, 6 or 7 years old, he saw people come to the temple and bring cakes and banana to offer to the Buddha. He wanted to know how the Buddha eats bananas, so he waited until everyone went home and the shrine was closed. And then he peered through the door, waiting for the Buddha to reach out his hand, take a banana, peel it and eat it. He waited and waited, but nothing happened. The Buddha did not seem to eat bananas, unless he realized that someone was spying on him. Thich Nhat Hanh told me several other stories about when he was a young boy. When he discovered that the statue of the Buddha was not the Buddha, he began to ask where the Buddhas are, because it did not seem to him that Buddhas were living among humans. He concluded that Buddhas must not be very nice, because when people became Buddhas, they would leave us to go to a faraway country. I told him that Buddhas are us. They are made of flesh and bones, not copper or silver or gold. The Buddha statue is just a symbol for the Buddha, in the same way the American flag is a symbol of America. The American flag is not the American people. The root word Bud means to wake up, to know, to understand. A person who wakes up and understands is called a Buddha. It is as simple as that. The capacity to wake up, to understand, and to love is called Buddha nature. When Buddhists say, "I take refuge in the Buddha," they are expressing trust in their own capacity of understanding, of becoming awake. The Chinese and the Vietnamese say, "I go back and rely on the Buddha in me." Adding "in me" makes it very clear that you yourself are the Buddha. In Buddhism there are 3 gems: Buddha, the awakened one; Dharma, the way of understanding and loving; and Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. The 3 are interrelated, and at times it is hard to distinguish one from the other. In every one there is the capacity to wake up, to understand, and to love. So in ourselves we find Buddha, and we also find Dharma and Sangha. I will explain more about Dharma and Sangha, but first I want to say something about Buddha, the one who develops his or her understanding and loving to the highest degree. In Sanskrit, understanding is prajna, and love is karuna and maitri. Understanding and love aren't 2 separate things. They are just one. Suppose your son wakes up one morning and sees that it's already quite late. He decides to wake up his younger sister to give her enough time to eat breakfast before going to school. It happens that she is grouchy, and instead of saying, "Thank you for waking me up," she says, "Shut up, leave me alone," and kicks him. He will probably get angry, thinking, "I woke her up nicely, why did she kick me?" He may want to go to the kitchen and tell you about it, or even kick her back. But then he remembers that during the night his sister coughed a lot, and he realizes that she must be sick. Maybe she has a cold. Maybe that is why she behaved in such a mean way. He is not angry anymore. At that moment there is Buddha in him. He understands. He is awake. When you understand, you cannot help but love. You cannot get angry. To develop understanding, you have to practice looking at all living beings with the eyes of compassion. When you understand, you love. And when you love, you naturally act in a way that can relieve the suffering of people. Someone who is awake, who knows, who understands, is called a Buddha. Buddha is in every one of us. We can become awake, understanding, and also loving. I often tell children that if their mother or their father is very understanding and loving, working, taking care of the family, smiling, and being lovely as a flower, they can say, "Mommy or Daddy, you are all Buddha today." 2,500 years ago, there was a person who practiced in a way that his understanding and love became perfected, and everyone in the world recognized this. His name was Siddhartha. When Siddhartha was very young, he began to think that life contained a lot of suffering, that people didn't love and understand each other enough. So he left his home to go to the forest to practice meditating, breathing, and smiling. He became a monk, and he tried to practice in order to develop his awakening, his understanding, and his love to the highest levels. He practiced sitting meditation and walking meditation for several years with 5 friends who were also monks. Although they were intelligent people, they made mistakes. For instance, each day they ate only one piece of fruit, one mango, or one guave, or one star fruit. Sometimes people exaggerate and say that Siddhartha ate only one sesame seed a day. But I went to the forest in India where he practiced, and I know that is silly because there are no sesame seeds there. I saw also the Nidra river, in which he bathed several times, and the Bodhi tree where he sat and became a Buddha. The Bodhi tree I saw is not the same tree. It is the great-great-great-grandchild of the first Bodhi tree. One day Siddhartha became so weak that he could not practice, and he was an intelligent young man. He decided to go to the village and get something to eat, bananas or cake or anything. But as soon as he took 4 or 5 steps, he stumbled and fainted. He lost consciousness because he was too hungry. He would have died, but the village chief daughter, Siddhartha, who was taking food to the forest gods, saw him and came over. She found that he was still alive, still breathing, but very weak. And so she took a bowl and poured some milk into his mouth. At first, Siddhartha did not react, but then his lips moved and he began to drink the milk. He drank a whole bowl of milk and he felt much better and slowly sat up. He looked beautiful because Siddhartha was a very, very handsome person. Nowadays, people make statues of him that are not very handsome. Sometimes they are even grouchy, without any smile on his face. But he was a very beautiful person, and Siddhartha thought that he must be a god of the mountain. She kneeled down and was about to worship, but he stretched out his arm to tell her not to, and he told her something. What do you think he must have said to her? He said, "Please give me another bowl of milk." He saw that the milk was doing wonderful things, and he knew that once our body is strong enough, we can succeed in meditation. The young lady was so happy, she poured him another bowl of milk. After that, she inquired about him, and he said that he was a monk trying to meditate to develop his compassion and his understanding to the highest level so that he could help other people. She asked if there was anything she could do to help him, and Siddhartha said, "Each day at the noontime, can you give me a small bowl of rice? That would help me very much." So from that day on, she brought him some rice wrapped in banana leaves, and sometimes she also brought milk. The 5 other monks Siddhartha had been practicing with despised him and thought him worthless. "Let us go somewhere else to practice. He drinks milk and he eats rice. He has no perseverance." But Siddhartha did very well. Day in and day out he meditated, and he developed his insight, his understanding and his compassion very, very quickly as he recovered his health. One day, after taking a swim in the Nidra river, he had the impression that he only needed one more sitting to come to a total breakthrough, to become a fully enlightened person. When he was about to sit down, still practicing walking meditation, a buffalo boy came by. In India, 2,500 years ago, water buffalo were used to pull the plows, and the buffalo boy's job was to watch them, bathe and take care of them, and cut grass for them to eat. As the buffalo boy came by, he saw Siddhartha walking very peacefully, and he liked him immediately. Sometimes we see someone we like very much, even if we don't know why. The boy wanted to say something, but he was shy, so he came near Siddhartha 3 or 4 times before saying, "Gentleman, I like you very much." Siddhartha looked at him and said, "I like you also." Encouraged by this response, the boy told him, "I really want to give you something, but I have nothing I can give to you." And Siddhartha said, "You do have something that I need. You have very beautiful green grass that you just cut. If you want to, please give me an armful of that grass." The boy was so happy to be able to give him something, and Siddhartha thanked him very much. After the buffalo boy left, Siddhartha spread the grass into a cushion that he could sit on. As he sat down, he made a firm vow. "Until I get true enlightenment, I shall not stand up." With this strong determination, he meditated all night, and when the morning star appeared in the sky, he became a fully enlightened person, a Buddha, with the highest capacity to understand and to love. The Buddha stayed at that spot for 2 weeks, smiling and enjoying his breathing. Every day, Sujata brought him rice, and the buffalo boy also came by to see him. He taught them about understanding, loving, and being awake. There's a scripture in the Pali Canon called the Sutra of Tending Buffalo, which lists 11 skills a buffalo boy must have, such as recognizing his own buffalo, making smoke to keep mosquitoes away, taking care of wounds on the body of buffalo, helping buffalo cross rivers, and finding places with enough water and grass to eat. After listing 11 skills, the Buddha tells the monks that meditation is also like this. And he lists 11 parallel skills for monks, recognizing the 5 components of human being, and so on. Most stories of the life of the Buddha overlook the 2 weeks he stayed near the Bodhi tree, meeting with Sujata and the buffalo boy, walking slowly, enjoying themselves. But I am sure it happened this way. Otherwise, how could the Buddha have delivered the Sutra of Tending Buffalo? In fact, when the buffalo boy grew up, he must have become a disciple of the Buddha, and one day, as he sat in the front of the assembly, the Buddha delivered that sutra. After 2 weeks, the Buddha realized he had to get up from his seat under the Bodhi tree and share his understanding and compassion with other people. He told Sujata and the buffalo boy, "I am sorry, but I have to leave now. We are so happy together, but I must go and work with the adults." He thought about how he could share his understanding and compassion, and he remembered the 5 friends who had practiced with him. He walked an entire day in order to find them, and when he happened upon their camp, they had just finished their afternoon sitting meditation. They sat a lot. They were very thin by now, as you can imagine. One of them saw the Buddha coming and said to the others, "Don't stand up if he comes. Don't go to the gate to welcome him. Don't go and fetch water for him to wash his feet and his hands. He did not persevere. He ate rice and he drank milk." But when he arrived, he was so attractive and so peaceful that they could not help themselves from offering him water to wash his feet and his hands, and giving him a special seat. The Buddha told them, "Friends, I have found a way to develop understanding and loving. Please, Sit down, I'll teach you." They did not believe at first. They said, "Siddhartha, while we practiced together, you gave up. You drank milk. You ate rice. How is it possible you have become a fully enlightened person? Please tell us. We cannot believe it." The Buddha said, "Friends, have I ever told you a lie?" In fact, he had never lied to anyone, and these 5 friends remembered that. "I have never told you a lie. I am not telling you a lie. I have become a fully enlightened person, and I'll be your teacher. Sit down and listen to me." And the 5 of them sat down and listened to the Buddha. He gave his first Dharma talk for adults. If you want to read his words, they are available in the wonderful sutra called Discourse on Turning the Wheel of the Dharma, explaining the basic doctrines of Buddhism: suffering, the causes of suffering, the removal of suffering, and the way to do it. I have read many accounts of the life in the Buddha, and I see him as a person like us. Sometimes artists draw a Buddha in a way that we cannot recognize him as a human being. In fact, he is a human being. I have seen so many Buddha statues, but not many really beautiful and simple ones. If any time you want to draw a picture of Buddha, please sit down and breathe for 5 or 10 minutes, smiling, before you pick up the pen to draw a Buddha. Then draw a simple Buddha, beautiful but simple, with a smile. And if you can, draw some children sitting with him. Buddha is young, not too grim, not too solemn, with a very light smile on his face. We have to go in this direction, because when we look at the Buddha, we have to like him, just as the buffalo boy and Siddhartha did. When we say, "I take refuge in the Buddha," we can also understand that the Buddha takes refuge in me. Because without the second part, the first part is not complete. The Buddha needs us for awakening, understanding, and love to be real things and not just concepts. They must be real things that have real effects on life. Whenever I say, "I take refuge in the Buddha," I hear, "Buddha takes refuge in me." There is a verse for planting trees and other plants. I entrust myself to earth. Earth entrusts herself to me. I entrust myself to Buddha. Buddha entrusts herself to me. I entrust myself to earth is like I take refuge in the Buddha. I identify myself with the plant. The plant will die or be alive because of the earth. The plant takes refuge in the earth, the soil. But earth entrusts herself to me because each leaf that falls down and decomposes makes the soil richer. We know that the layer of the soil that is rich and beautiful has been made by the vegetation. If the earth is green and beautiful, it is because of this vegetation. Therefore, while the vegetation needs the earth also needs the vegetation to express herself as a beautiful planet. So when we say, I entrust myself to earth, I am also saying, earth entrusts herself to me. I entrust myself to Buddha. Buddha entrusts herself to me. It's very clear that the wisdom, the understanding, and love of Shakyamuni Buddha needs us to be real things again in life. Therefore, we have a very important task: to realize awakening, to realize compassion, to realize understanding. We are all Buddhas, because only thoughts us can understanding, because only through us can understanding and loving become tangible and effective. Thich Nhat Hanh was killed during his effort to help other people. He was a good Buddhist. He was a good Buddha, because he was able to help tens of thousands of people, victims of the war. Because of him, awakening, understanding, and love were real things for many people. So when we call him a Buddha body, in Sanskrit we say Buddhakaya. For Buddhism to be real, there must be a Buddhakaya, an embodiment of awakened activity. Otherwise, Buddhism is just a word. Thich Nhat Hanh was a Buddhakaya. Shakyamuni was a Buddhakaya. When we realize awakening, when we are understanding and loving, each of us is a Buddhakaya. The second gem is the Dharma. Dharma is what the Buddha taught. It is the way of understanding and love. How to understand, how to love, how to make understanding and love into real things. Before the Buddha passed away, he said to his students, "Dear friends, my physical body will not be here tomorrow, but my teaching body will always be here to help. You can consider it as your own teacher, a teacher who never leaves you." That is the birth of Dharmakaya. The Dharma has a body also, the body of the teaching. The meaning of Dharmakaya is quite simple, although some people in Mahayana have made it very complicated. Dharmakaya just means the teaching of the Buddha, the way to realize understanding and love. Later it became something like the ontological ground of being. Anything that can help you to awake, anything that can help you wake up has Buddha nature. When I am alone and a bird calls me, I return to myself. I breathe and I smile, and sometimes it calls me once more. I smile and I say to the bird, "I hear already." Not only sounds, but sights can remind you to return to your true self. In the morning, when you open your window and see the light streaming in, you can recognize it as the voice of the Dharma, and it becomes part of the Dharmakaya. That is why people who are awake see the manifestation and the Dharma in everything. A pebble, a bamboo tree, the cry of a baby. Anything can be the voice of the Dharma calling. We can practice like that. In the 13th century, a monk came to visit Tua Trung, the most illustrious teacher of Buddhism in Vietnam at that time. The monk asked him, "What is the pure, immaculate Dharmakaya?" Tua Trung pointed to the excrement of a horse. This was an irreverent approach to Dharmakaya. This was an irreverent approach to Dharmakaya, because people were using the word immaculate to describe it. You can't use words to describe the Dharmakaya. Even though we say that it is immaculate and pure, that doesn't mean it is separate from things that are impure. reality, ultimate reality, is free from all adjectives, either pure or impure. So his response was to shake up the monk's mind, so he could cleanse himself of all these adjectives in order to see into the nature of the Dharmakaya. A teacher is also part of the Dharmakaya, because she or he helps us to be awake. The way he looks, the way she lives her daily life, the way she deals with people, animals, and plants helps us to realize understanding and love in our life. There are many ways of teaching. Teaching by words, teaching by books, teaching by tape records. I have a friend who is a Zen teacher in Vietnam, quite well known. He isn't allowed to preach in Ho Chi Minh City because if he teaches there, too many people come to hear him, and the government does not like that. Therefore, people make tape recordings of his talks, and he has become known as Cassette Monk. He is still in Vietnam. The government chased him away from his monastery, so he had to go to another place to teach. Even if we can't hear the teachings of the Cassette Monk, his being is very helpful to us in being awake, for he is part of the Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is not just expressed in words, in sounds. It can express itself in just being. Sometimes, if we don't do anything, we help more than if we do a lot. We call that no action. It is like the calm person on a small boat in a storm. That person does not have to do much, just to be himself, and the situation can change. That is also an aspect of the Dharmakaya. Not talking, not teaching, just being. This is not only true of humans, but other species as well. Look at the trees in our yard. An oak tree is an oak tree. That is all it has to do. If an oak tree is less than an oak tree, then we are all in trouble. Therefore, the oak tree is preaching the Dharma, without doing anything, not serving in the school of youth for social service, not preaching, not even sitting in meditation. The oak tree is very helpful to all of us, just by being there. Every time we look at the oak tree, we have confidence. During the summer, we sit under it and we feel cool, relaxed. We know that if the oak tree is not there and all the other trees are not there, we will not have a good air to breathe. In our former lives, we were trees. Maybe we have even been oak trees ourselves. This isn't just Buddhist theory, it's science. The human species is a very young species. We appeared on the earth only recently. Before that, we were rock, we were gas, we were minerals, we were single-celled beings, we were plants, we were trees, and now we have become humans. We have to recall our past existence. This is not difficult. You just sit down and breathe and look, and you can see your past existence. When we shout at the oak tree is not offended. When we praise the oak tree, it does not raise its nose. We can learn the Dharma from the oak tree. Therefore, the oak tree is part of our Dharmakaya. We can learn from everything that is around, that is in us. Even if we aren't at a meditation center, we can still practice at home, because around us the Dharma is present. Everything is preaching the Dharma. Each pebble, each leaf, each flower is preaching the Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. The Sangha is the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Sangakaya is a new Sanskrit term. The Sangha needs a body also. When you are with your family and you practice smiling, breathing, recognizing the Buddha body in yourself and your children, then your family becomes a Sangha. If you have a bell in your home, the bell becomes part of your Sangakaya, because the bell helps you to practice. If you have a cushion, then the cushion also becomes part of the Sangakaya. Many things help us practice. The air for breathing. If you have a park or a riverbank near your home, you are very fortunate because you can enjoy practicing walking meditation. You have to discover your Sangakaya, inviting a friend to come and practice with you. Have tea meditation, sit with you, join you for walking meditation. All those efforts are to establish your Sangakaya at home. Practice is easier if you have a Sangakaya. Siddhartha, the Buddha-to-be, while practicing with other people, he began to drink milk, and the 5 monks who were with him went away. So he made the Bodhi tree into his Sangakaya. He made the buffalo boy, Sujata, the river, the trees, and the birds around him into his Sangakaya. There are those in Vietnam who live in re-education camps. They don't have a Sangha. They don't have a Zen center, but they practice. They have to look upon other things as part of their Sangakaya. I know of people who practiced walking meditation in their prison cells. They told me this after they got out of camp. So while we are lucky, while we are still capable of finding so many elements to set up our Sangakaya, we should do so. A friend, our own children, our own brother or sister, our house, the trees in our backyard, all of them can be part of our Sangakaya. Practicing Buddhism, practicing meditation, is for us to be serene and happy, understanding and loving. In that way, we can work for the peace and happiness of our family and our society. If we look closely, the 3 gems are actually one. In each of them, the other 2 are already there. In Buddha, there is Buddhahood, there is the Buddha body. In Buddha, there is the Dharma body, because without the Dharma body, he could not have become a Buddha. In the Buddha, there is the Sangha body, because he had breakfast with the Bodhi tree, with the other trees, the birds, and the environment. In a meditation center, we have a Sangha body, Sangakaya, because the way of understanding and compassion is practiced there. Therefore, the Dharma body is present, the way, the teaching is present. But the teaching cannot become real without the life and the body of each of us. So the Buddhakaya is also present. If Buddha and Dharma are not present, it is not Sangha. Without you, the Buddha is not real. It is just an idea. Without you, the Dharma cannot be practiced. It has to be practiced by someone. Without each of you, the Sangha cannot be. That is why we say, I take refuge in the Buddha. We also hear, the Buddha takes refuge in me. I take refuge in the Dharma. The Dharma takes refuge in me. I take refuge in the Sangha. The Sangha takes refuge in me.